is eye-opening. And the small habits or small tweaks that we can make to our lives that can add, according to Dan, in his research, 12 additional healthy years to our lives. What I'm going to do today is try and summarize those in my talk to give us some idea of what we can do in our daily lives, but then look also at Islam and see how Islam measures up, how Islam can be measured against these individuals have. Inshallah, Said Saab, you can switch on the presentation again and we can start the live broadcast. So where are the blue zones? I want to make this a little bit interactive. I know all of you are well traveled around the world. So I'm going to first ask, has anybody, just by show of hands, has anybody, does anybody watch this documentary before on the blue zones? One. You watched it in Japan, okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. So number one, can anybody tell where number one, the circle with number one, where is that? Japan, yeah. Number two, guess. I know it's roughly, but as a guess. Italy. A particular island in Italy. Anyone? Sardinia, Italy. Number three. Close to Malta. No. 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 Any other guesses? No. Somewhere in southern Europe, very popular holiday destination. No. Somewhere else. It has 1,000 islands. Greece, Asant. Number four. Costa Rica, Asant. And number five, close to Vancouver. Probably the best example for us to take. California, USA, yeah. So I'll just go through that now. Where are the places, the 5 places where people live the longest? Okinawa, Japan. Ikaria in Greece. Sardinia, Italy. Nicoya in Costa Rica, and Loma Linda, California, USA. That's probably a metropolis city, a cosmopolitan city like London, so it's a great example for us that it's not only islands or remote destinations where people are living longer, but also in big cities. Inshallah, so what are the 9 habits of power habits of the people that live in these cities? But before I get into that, I just wanted to make one point, maybe if I just go to the slide behind. Have you noticed something about all these destinations geographically? They're all in the northern hemisphere, 20th parallel. Now, when Dan did his research, he was trying to think and wonder why is it that the longest people are living in this particular band. And he came up with 2 reasons. He said that the people in sub-Saharan Africa, is that although they have good diets and other things that we'll go through, and they have good habits, they suffer a lot from tropical diseases, which increases their rate of mortality. And up north, he goes, there's very little sunlight. So he goes, people are spending more time indoors rather than outdoors. And he's proposed that these 2 possible reasons are why up in the northern hemisphere and down in the south, we are not getting the longest living people. But he's made some suggestions of what we can do. You can see UK slightly higher than Sardinia and Italy. What we can do here, we'll come across to try and compensate for that. So what are the 9 power habits of these blue zones that can impact our years dramatically? I first want to just get a show of hands and ask some questions, just to see what people think. Is there a practice, a secret, or a template, or a formula, do you think, to longevity. What do we, just by show of hands, do you think there is a way that we can increase our lives by following a practice? I just want to have a vote to see how many people think that. If you can just raise your hands. So less than 10% of people think there's a way of increasing life. And when it comes to eating food and going on and eating healthy food, do we feel that there's only one type of food or set type of foods that we can eat, or there's a diverse type of food? If you think that there is just one set type of food that we can eat, raise your hand, please. Okay, less than 10%. Does having good friends and friendships lead to longer lives? Yeah, hands, just show of hands. Okay, more than 40%. Does going to the gym, working out, exercising lead to a longer life? Yeah, how many? All under 50%. And does Islam, our belief and our practice in Islam facilitate a long life? What do we think? Yeah. We'll go through these 9 habits, and then we'll see, we'll examine and reflect upon how Islam assists us as well. So the first one, what they found from people who are living the longest, they move naturally. There's no need to go to the gym, no need to run a marathon, no need to pump iron. They walk, they garden, they cook, they clean, they do DIY, they're volunteers. Movement is engineered as part of their daily lives. None of them are going to the gym, but they are moving on average every 20 minutes when they are not sleeping. They are doing something. And what is most interesting on all these locations, what they found is the activity that was common in all those 5 regions, which led people to have healthier and longer lives, was the fact that they did gardening, that they grew fruits and vegetables in their garden. And the reason they proposed that why gardening is the most cost effective is, 1, because there is movement involved. 2, because we are on the earth, we are one with nature. 3, they have shown clinically that when we are in nature, it reduces stress and reduces our heart rate. And 4, we are growing stuff that we look forward. We are caring for something, a plant, so that it may give us a produce that we may enjoy. We are actively engaging in something. So they found quite interesting that gardening was the activity that increased lifespan the most. But how many years does moving naturally, can it add to our lives? 3 to 5 years. That if we engineer moving naturally in our daily lives and add gardening to it, then we can add up to 5 years to our life. Secondly, having a purpose. Know your why. What's your purpose? Can you articulate it? Do you have a mission statement? Do you know why you're waking up every day in the morning? Now, good thing about Islam is, as believers, we all know we have a purpose. We all have this concept of making an intention before everything that we do. We call it niyyah, or intention. But they found that in these 5 regions, even these non-Muslims, they all had a purpose to their lives. They all knew why they were waking up every single day in the morning, and each of them had a mission statement. So for example, one of their mission statements is, I want to volunteer at my local community or church. Every day in the morning, I want to assist the seniors by volunteering at my local community. That was their mission statement. And they were able to articulate what their purpose was. And they said just having a mission statement or a purpose in life can add 7 years to your life. That every day in the morning you understand what your purpose is, why you're waking up, what you are going to do. Thirdly, downshifting. And what I mean by this is having rituals that enable you to reduce your stress and relax. So many of them had their own prayers, ancestral veneration, which was quite interesting. They honored their elders and their leaders. They did meditation, they took afternoon naps, and they had this as a daily ritual in their lives. And I will share this, by the way, there's no need to take notes. I'm going to give a handout today because the information is very useful, and I'll pass it along just in a second now. Downshifting or finding ways to reduce your stress can add 4 years to their life. And all this, by the way, has been studied over 20 years and through clinical research. Lastly, the 80% rule. Now, this reminds me of, stuff in Islam, that all these people, that when they ate meals, they stopped eating when their tummies were 80% full. And, it sounds like, it's an Islamic tradition where the Holy Prophet had said, split your tummy into 3 parts. Third for food, third for water, third for air. But these groups of people practiced it and could articulate the fact that they would stop eating when they were 80% full. The other thing they did, and this is stuff that we have in Islam, is that they recited a prayer before eating. In their own beliefs, they recited a prayer. Like we're told to recite Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They ate together. And what's interesting also was the meal sizes. Their largest meal was breakfast. Then the next largest meal or medium meal was lunch, and the smallest meal that they had, which was before 6 p.m., was dinner. And they're saying just following these practices, and this is again clinically proven, just by saying a prayer and remembering your Lord or your deity, whatever they did, that would make them lose weight. They said just that thing would help them eat less because they were grateful and conscious of the food that they had in front of them. Quite interesting. And this adds 2 to 3 years to your life. Then number 5 was a plant slant. Now this was the issue where we probably have the hardest difficulty with, but I want to make some quite important points here. All of these communities, 85% of their diet was based on plants. Greens, beans, lentils, fruits, whole grains, sweet potatoes, nuts. Now, it's not what you call superfoods, which we are told about today, but what they found was peasant foods. Beans, soya, lentils, onions. Dan said these are the cheapest foods that you find on the planet. Today, we want to spend money on buying the most expensive foods. But what he said and what he found was the peasant food, the rice, the beans, the lentils, the soya. This was what led people to have long and healthier lives. And they ate meat only 5 times in a month. And when I mean by meat, I'm talking about fish, chicken, and meat. Then no more than 5 times in a month, they would have meat. And what they found is that Okinawa, Japan was a very good example. And I'm just going to mention this. Is that in Okinawa, Japan, they had the highest, 20 years ago, they had the highest number of centenarians in the world. People would go to Japan, just in Okinawa for tourism, to study this group of people. 20 years later, they've got the worst mortality rate because the fast food stores, the preservatives, or all this stuff has, because of the number of tourists appearing in Okinawa, Japan, all these additional stores and convenience stores have appeared, now got the worst rate of life expectancy and life mortality just by changing their diet. So a poor diet can reduce your life by 15 years. But if we take care of what we eat, it can add 4 years to your life. Fun with friends at 5. And this is what I love. He said every single one of these people, every single day, met up with their friends. Now, it just reminds me of life in East Africa when we would have our mosques or our sporting grounds. Every day after work, I remember as a child, we would rush to our sports ground, our sports center, play sports, meet with friends. They said that these group of these people in these regions, they spend 6 hours a day socializing. Very important message. That every single day, they had a point to meet up with friends. And I think this is why, having a social club, a center of our own, a complex, makes a big difference because it's a gathering point for every single day. People can share their problems, lift each other up, help each other. There was a big eye-opener that they spend 6 hours a day socializing with friends and family. That adds 3 to 5 years to your life. The other big one, and this is, the one that has the biggest impact, is they all belong to a community. And the communities they belong to, in order for that to have an impact on their lives, they had to attend a minimum of 4 times in a month to their community gatherings or their community centers. Those who didn't attend at least 4 programs didn't have the same impact as those who attended more than 4 times in the month. And the more regular they were, the greater impact that had on their longevity, their lifespan. And this is the one that was the most remarkable. It could add up to 14 years of your life. Subhanallah, just belonging to a community and regularly attending a center. Number 8, love ones first. Of course, we have the concept of Sile Raham, but in every single one of these regions and these communities that were studied, extended families were very close to where they lived. That everybody could literally walk to meet their family members. That they had the lowest level of divorce rates. That husband and wife were there to support each other all the time. They said that married people can have 10 years longer life than those who are unmarried, because they are getting social contact every single day, and that there are people to care and love for them. And this can add 3 to 6 years to your life. And lastly, the right tribe. We've often heard that you are the sum of the 5 people that you most spend time with. So if your friends are regular smokers or obese or don't take care of your health, most likely then you will also have this issue of taking care of your health. It said that the people in these 5 regions, they chose their friends very carefully. They hung out with people that had the habits, the virtues, the qualities, the characteristics that they wanted to get within themselves. And I know here, for example, we have many clubs, swimming clubs, sport clubs, table tennis. What the point they're trying to make is select your group of friends with qualities or virtues or characteristics that assist and enable you to have a longer and healthier life. And this can add up to 6 years of your life. Now, if you think about all of this, and I want to come to the next part, and I'm going to hand out these leaflets now. I'm sure when you've been going through all of these, you've been thinking, hold on a minute, isn't this just a reflection of Islam? Doesn't each and every single one of these characteristics or habits or qualities, aren't they emphasized in Islam? What Dan is saying is that if we implement these properly, then we can expect 10 to 12 years additional in our lives. That we can add 10 or 12, not only years, but 10 or 12 healthy and quality years. There's a leaflet that's coming out at the moment, and I'll just start sharing my screen. How does Islam embrace the blue zone habits? And is this an exercise that I want us to go through, just so that we can think about and help us think about our lives and what we can do. Muhammad, if you can add some at the back over there as well. But basically what I've done is on the left side, if you look at the screen, I have mentioned the power habits that we have just been through. I have mentioned that the next column is the impact in the years which we saw. And then I've tried to, and I want this to be an interactive session, look at Islam, our community, and ourselves, and give us a score of 1 to 10. And I want us to make this engaging a little bit and ask ourselves, so for example, when it comes to moving naturally, is the first power habit that has been identified, where people are moving every 20 minutes. Does the religion of Islam stress the importance of moving, ask us to do things, practices, habits that move? And I've shared some examples. For example, salah. Salah is a form of stretching and moving. If we pray the wajib salah, 17 rakat. If we do the nafila salah, we are moving and stretching even 4 times more than in the wajib salah. But also in Islam, as an example, we are recommended to come for Jamaat namaz. Now, in the olden days, there were mosques, and still in the Middle East, there's a mosque on every street. People would simply walk to the mosque. movement will be engineered at least 5 times a day into their daily lives. But even here, if we drive to the mosque, we're still making the effort to get dressed, to leave the house, to get into the car, to come into the mosque. So the point of even coming for Jamaat namaz is creating movement within ourselves. Then we're told as well to elongate our sajdas. But I wanted to get open the floor up. What other practices do we have in Islam which is encouraging movement, which can lead to a long life? Anybody? Yeah. To be active, swimming, archery, horse riding, being active in Islam is a hadith of the Prophet that recommends this. Very important. Any other things that we do? Yeah. Charity, that we give charity. So these days, when we give charity, and that is why sometimes it's recommended that in the traditions, that we give charity in the hand of the person. Obviously, these days, through convenience, that we go online on our apps maybe and make donations, there's less physical activity involved. But in Islam, giving charity in the hands of the needy person is the most important. And that, of course, encourages movement. Anything else that we do that can encourage, that practices that we have that encourage in our centers, that encourage movement? MashaAllah. Volunteering and helping others, yeah. Sile Raham, visiting family, being in touch with family. But even if we think about the practices like we have in Muharram, Matam is physical movement. Azadari is physical, standing for ziyarah. Even the habits of doing wudu, ghusl, before all our actions, this is forcing us to physically move our bodies. Visiting the Qabristan regularly. The people in the regions would visit their ancestors a lot, visit the graves. We are recommended to visit the Qabristan. All these practices are encouraging movement within Islam. So I gave Islam a score of 10 out of 10. Because when it comes to moving naturally, we have more than enough examples of how we can move naturally. Now, when it comes to the community, I gave a lower score. And I reduced it by 8. Why? Because maybe we don't have all the wajib namazes all the time at the mosque. Maybe we don't have enough practices that we could have in as many programs rather than we could have in the center. It's not open maybe every single day of the week. I could be wrong, you can correct me, but it's not open. We don't have daily gatherings for our seniors as we used to have in East Africa where people could meet up. But alhamdulillah, we're doing well. 8. And then lastly, how do we personally score? Now, I gave us a lower score there of 6 because maybe we don't, and I'm talking about myself, maybe I'm not praying all the nafila namazes every single day. I'm not attending Jamaat namaz at the mosque as much as I can. So I'm leaving lots of opportunities to move, to exercise on the table. I'm not taking advantage, but I've given you that paper. This an exercise that we can reflect upon and think about how we can help ourselves move more naturally when we reflect on our habits and score ourselves. Secondly, when it comes to purpose, know your why. What is your purpose? Now again, Islam here, I haven't put the score, but I would like to give it a 10 out of 10. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told the Muslims, the believers, what is our purpose? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That we have created man and jinn, or jinn and man, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In every single action that we are told to make an intention or a niyyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always asking us that before you say anything, do anything, think about the intention, the benefit of what that action is going to achieve. So I would give purpose in Islam a 10 out of 10. Community, I think all our programs are created with a purpose, but I think sometimes also we can think in more detail about the value that we get out of our community programs, how we can organize them. So I would give it a 6. And then how we interact around the community, I will leave that for you guys to do later. I want to for today, just go through the Islamic examples. When it comes to downshifting, reducing stress, in Islam, we have prayer, we have dua, we visit the graveyard. There's so many programs that we have and practices that I have within Islam that help us to de-stress. We have the verse in the glorious Quran. Allah says, "Allah bi zikrillahi tatma'inal qulub." In the remembrance of Allah, do the hearts find rest? So again, I would give it a 10 out of 10. That the first three habits that I would say that Islam probably does better than or offer something greater than what those communities or even practices in the blue zones. When it comes to the 80% rule, that don't eat until your tummy is full. Make a prayer before eating. Eat with family. Eat together as a group. I would say again 10 out of 10 for Islam. We probably emphasize these qualities and these habits more than any other community. We say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We recommend it before we eat. We're recommended to eat with family. We eat in our community with our brothers and sisters together. We give sadaqah. We do so many things that encourage us to eat well. And then, sorry, yeah, it's 11:33, 11:45, 7 minutes. Yeah. I'll just finish this because we've got 7 more minutes to go, inshallah, and then I'll conclude, inshallah. Plant slant. Again, if we think, all the superfoods that we are told today, although we may not associate it with our culture or our traditions, but in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions all these foods that are the best for our bodies. And I'll just mention, and I know, for example, the obvious ones, anybody can give me an example? Mentioned in the Quran, foods that are mentioned in the Quran. Honey, olives, figs, watini wa zaytun. Yeah, the dates, pomegranate, lentils, grapes, onions. These are all mentioned in the glorious Quran. These are the foods which are being eaten by those that live to over 100 years old. The same exact foods that are mentioned in the Quran. 10 out of 10 again. Fun with friends at 5. Now, Islam obviously encourages us to get together. Get together for Jamaat Namaz. Get together and meet your brothers, meet your sisters, assist one another, volunteer. We have, we get together for Kushali, Wafat, Wiladat, so many different programs, so many different opportunities. We are encouraged to get together. Again, I would give Islam 10 out of 10. Belonging to a community and faith group. This is what we do. We have our own community. Mosques are areas where communities can get together. We have more than maybe 10, 15 programs in a week at our centers, different types of programs that we get together. I would give Islam 10 out of 10. Loved ones first. We have the famous concept of Sile Raham in Islam. Islam says, in fact, that Sile Raham is one of the ways of increasing your lifespan. 10 out of 10. And then the right tribes. Friends with healthy habits. Islam is always also encouraging us to develop good habits, do good things. When we have this category of people in Islam, the mu'min, make friends with mu'mins. This is a tribe within Islam. There are different types of Muslims in the world. There are different categories of Muslims, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives different names to different groups. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, inviting people, make friends with people of taqwa, people of piety. They tend to live longer. Inshallah, you've got the paper. I've given a copy to everyone. It gives examples of all these habits. You can reflect on it. Inshallah, on a future session, we can go through it deeply because I'm running out of time. So I want to go quickly and just come to the conclusion. I'm just mentioning 10 practices here, which you all heard of, which are synonymous with blue zone habits. Maintaining family ties leads to longer life. We all know this, by the way, and we'll find that in no other community, in no other faith, do we have so many practices which we are told in hadith that lead to longer life. Giving charity leads to a longer life. Good conduct, longer life. Honoring parents, longer life. All traditions you know of. And I can share this presentation, people want it. Supplication and dua, longer life. Helping others and doing good deeds lead to longer life. Moderation in eating lead to longer life. Avoiding and seeking forgiveness, we have hadith, leads to longer life. Going for ziyarah, hajj and umrah, one of the benefits we know leads to longer life. And lengthening our prostration in sujood leads to a longer life. And if we had time, I'm sure you can come up with many more where we've heard the hadith in the countless majlises of practices we have in Islam that enable us to lead a longer life. So we should be the people as Muslims that live the longest in this world. But, taking me to my last slide, before we get there, I'll just give you some key takeaways. But we don't, and we'll get to that, and I want to discuss that, inshallah, in a future session. But just key takeaways today: habits and not genetics. People think that our genes determine how long we live. People used to think that our genetics will tell us whether we live to 60 or 70. But research has said that longevity is 20% genetics only, 80% habits. We can control what kind of life that we have, how healthy it can be. Secondly, eating right. Adding more plants to our diet. 85% plant diet is what all those centenarians used to eat in order to live to 100. And the thing about them, and if you watch the documentary, you'll see, they love their food. Good food doesn't need to taste bland. I don't have the time today to show you, but the diverse amount of foods that we can eat that can be tasty is unbelievable. And I think one of the things we need to do as a community is experiment with the dishes that we love the most, how we can make it healthier. We should sponsor the best cooks in our community to say, look, these are the ingredients. We love these foods. How can we tweak them so the taste stays the same, but the health value in those dishes increases? Fix your environment. We're living these modern lives where we don't move a lot. Everything's on our phone now. We don't need to move. How can we engineer our environment to eat better and to live longer? One study showed that just removing the toaster from the kitchen, nothing ever good came from the food that goes in a toaster. Just taking the toaster away from a study showed that it adds 2 years to your life. It's not about wealth. What you noticed on that presentation of the blue zones, nowhere was it mentioned that the richer you are, the longer you live. And maybe it's because, although it can help with care costs, that basically the wealthier you are, maybe the more stress it adds to your life and the more convenience it can buy for you, which means the more convenience it buys for you, the less you are moving, because the more things are being done for you. And lastly, don't leave good years on the table. Just recap. By following these practices, you can add 10 to 12 years from your life. And inshallah, and in a future time, we'll go and look at specifically what Islam says about getting along. Islam's main goal in life is worshipping Allah, making it to paradise. But inherently, its practices favor longevity. That means that if we follow the practices of Islam, we should be the longest living people on the planet. Why don't we have green zones? Inshallah, if I get another opportunity to discuss this subject, we will look at what we can do as Shia Ishnashri Muslims, Khoja Shia Ishnashri Muslims, so we can create green zones. Green is the color of Islam. Green is the color of plants, the healthiest food. Why can't we be the healthiest, longest living people on this planet? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ahsan, Jazakallah, Shaykh Arif. The time just flew past very quickly. So now, if you wish to achieve a lifespan of Nuh, Nabi Allah, please follow his advice. Thank you so much, Shaykh Arif, for this very inspiring and enlightening talk, which I'm sure will go a long way to achieving a healthy, contented life, inshallah. We hope to invite you again to continue in the very near future, inshallah. Unfortunately, we don't have the time for the Q&A, but maybe after the Salat, if somebody has a question, and if Shaykh Arif agrees, then I think you should be able to ask him any questions that you might have. We have also had some sad news. Marhum Hasnain, the son of Abdul Hussain, Hassan Ali, passed away yesterday. The burial details you can find from the Hujjat website. And you may know that Abdul Hussain Bhai used to be the treasurer of our Hujjat seniors for many, many years. And we gonna pray for Maroom Hasnain with Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Yasin will be recited after the Salat by Brother Shams, inshallah. توجه زيارة. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا ابن مولا، السلام عليك يا قريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا سلطان يا أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرزاق، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان يا ابن الزهر عليه السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم قل لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزقا طوءا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات.